What if the universe were alive? Now, in this hypothetical scenario, obviously, we don't know what even aliens look like, okay? We give them opposable thumbs, like 3 or 4 fingers, green skin, and we're like, yo, that's a fucking alien. But obviously, we have no clue, okay? The stuff in our ocean, that shit looks more alien because it's a completely different environment. So how could we even imagine what this universal creature would look like, its functions, and how it survives in its environment? We have no idea. We can't even put a fine line between what is and what is not alive. That shit is still a mystery. However, the abundance of life on our planet could help give us a clue as to what this big ass creature could look like. And so that's what we're going to talk about in this video today. I hope you enjoy. 2 years ago, I came up with my first theory, my first crackpot theory. This is when I was first really getting into physics. I was wondering where dark matter comes from. And this is, without much research. I kind of just delved into it without really asking the question. I came to the conclusion that there was something at the end of a star's life cycle that created dark matter, so that when a supernova explosion occurs, this explosion will carry this dark matter along with it. Have you ever heard the phrase or something like, when a black hole is formed, it creates a tear in the fabric of space-time? Well, I imagined that at the core of a star, during the end of its life cycle, there was not a tear, because that hasn't happened yet, but a little scratch at the core. And this scratch allowed dark matter to seep into our universe. So I imagined kind of like a membrane of dark matter outside of our universe that seeped in. After a black hole is formed, you now have the required dark matter needed to help build galaxies. Dark matter is hypothesized to come from the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang. So all of this shit is just wrong. Anyways, I went deep into a rabbit hole of this membrane idea, and I was like, okay, what has membranes? Well, cells have membranes. And so, if we were to imagine that our universe were a living creature, well, the way that we define different types of life on our planet is if it is single-celled or multicellular. Ultimately, a lot of us believe that the universe is this extremely complex thing that we can't even grasp. But, I mean, if you think about it, it's pretty simple. It just came into being and it expanded. And that's all it does. Okay, it's just kind of getting bigger. So hypothetically, let's just begin with the question, what if our universe is something like a prokaryotic cell, so a simple organism that is just doing its thing, and it's really not as complex as it's made out to be. That being said, what on earth could possibly represent the entire universe? Well, that makes no sense. But there's one thing that our universe does that simple-celled organisms replicate, and that is to emit light. There is life on our planet, bioluminescent bacteria, prokaryotic simple-celled organisms that emit light. So, if we were to apply this to our universe, and if it were alive, well, it could be a massive, simple-celled, bioluminescent organism. Now, one popular example of bioluminescent single-celled organisms include dinoflagellates. They are a marine type of algae and are responsible for the breathtaking sea sparkle of glowing waves seen in many coastal areas at night. Another example is the bioluminescent bacteria, the symbiotic relationship between the anglerfish and the bacteria within inside its light bulb. Okay? The anglerfish tells the bacteria when to glow. This symbiotic relationship basically gives the anglerfish a second sense. It allows the anglerfish to see in its environment, to possibly hunt, to maybe mate or communicate with other anglerfish. And so this anglerfish is using this bacteria for a purpose to help survive in its environment. So if our universe is this big ass bioluminescent bacteria, single-celled organism inside the esca of a massive ass anglerfish, our local universes could also be emitting light, and so it is the collective light of all of these local universes, including ours, which help this massive fish to see, hunt, and mate in its environment. Moving on, what if our universe were not single-celled, but multicellular? So it's a little bit more complex. There's more shit happening. So what on planet Earth could help give us a clue as to what this universal multicellular organism could be? Now, we are multicellular organisms, and our skin is made up of billions of multicellular organisms that collectively help to provide protection and pigmentation and whatnot to help us survive in our environment. That being said, what if our universe, if it were multicellular, were part of an organ for a massive ass creature like the skin cell of a giant octopus, and it adapting in its environment is the cause for the expansion or contraction of our universe? You know, the age-old question, why are we here? Well, simply, it's because life comes from life. We are basically gods to the bacteria, the microbes within us that make us us. But if I were to believe in a god, it would be a non-personal living entity just doing its thing in its environment to survive, and we are just a part of that system. So if I were to believe in a god, it would be something like a big ass fish. We should all pray to this fish. We may not have any meaning to the fish, but our reality does. And I think that is quite special. We should cherish fish, and we should not be mean to fish, because God is fish. That is my video on what our universe could be if it were alive.